answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
What have you heard from the Iranians?
They'd like to talk, but they should have done that before. I had 60 days, and they had 60 days, and on the 61st day, I said, we don't have a deal. They have to make a deal, and it's painful for both parties, but I'd say Iran is not winning this war. And they should talk, and they should talk immediately before it's too late.
That with the G7 before the president left late last night up in Canada there. And this is the truth social that they sent out. Everyone should immediately evacuate it. Easier said than done in the city of Tehran. The city itself has upwards of 9.5 to 10 million people. The surrounding metropolitan area of Tehran, upwards of 17 million. The country itself is massive. It's about the size of Alaska. It's twice the size of Texas. You could take 75 Israels and put it inside, fit it inside the geography of Iran. That's what you're dealing with here. The borders are extensive and long with Iraq. It's about 1,000 miles in length. Several up here with Armenia and Azerbaijan. Turkmenistan, you see as well. Afghanistan. Pakistan's got a border that extends about 500 miles. This is, thus far, what these neighboring countries have done. Pakistan announced its borders closed yesterday. Azerbaijan has done it as well. The airspace is closed over Tehran. Many of those taillights you see in the video that we've been showing for the last 2 days, it's been reported that many folks who live in Tehran are heading north to the Caspian Sea. There's the taillights there on the highways. They are jammed at night. It is so easy to see based on the video when the night gets dark.
And they are doing their best to get out of Tehran, out of Iran, anywhere they can. That's the situation as it stands right now. And it could change within the next second. President Trump made it very clear, look, we have tried to work with Iran. We've offered them numerous opportunities to come sit with us. Let's resolve this so we do not get to this point. And we're at this point. Is this the breaking point, or is this still another stalemate point? President Trump is not going to telegraph that information directly to you, nor to me, nor to the nation, nor to Iran, nor should he. I want him to keep everything close to the chest, to let them know we have many options. You want to start counting them? None of them mean anything good for you. I want to thank you for joining us for hour number one, Larry Connors USA. Here we are, August 26, 2026. And let me take a moment to remind you, tomorrow Jamie will be off his program, the noon program. We will be airing during that hour. So the unfortunate side is no 3 Martini hour with Jamie tomorrow at noon. The upside is Larry Connors USA. And I say, forget the martinis. Grab a bottle of Jack, with or without ice, no straws, and sit back and enjoy a fascinating program we've got lined up for tomorrow. You already have Fred Flights lined up talking about the latest with Iran. I wanted him today, but at the same time, I really wanted him for tomorrow because I didn't expect anything to happen before tomorrow. But Fred will be with us, and he's an expert in all affairs regarding Iran. And also tomorrow, Sidney Powell will be joining us. She was one of the attorneys representing Donald Trump when they were contesting the Dominion voting product, remember? And Rudy Giuliani and the others. And Sidney Powell got slapped with massive fines and punishment, threatened to take away her law license, basically gagging her. And we were told, if you have that woman on your air again, if she appears on your program, Larry, we will cancel you from YouTube. You know what we did? The very next day, we had her back on. I haven't heard any threat from them lately, but they know we're going to do what the hell we decide. not what they tell us to do. So that'll be coming up tomorrow. And reminding you with Larry Connors USA, you are going to get news, analysis, opinion, and education. And education today comes in various ways. In part, where we stand right now with the general public belief with ICE. Is it doing the proper job or not? That's going to be an issue we'll be getting into later. And also a subject later still this hour that bears a closer resemblance of what's happening, and that is all these crackpot leftists who invaded churches shouting against ICE and against parishioners gathered to pray. It happened last weekend, the weekend before. Some were thinking about trying it again, but they realized ICE is serious. We will arrest you if you come in. Except for Don Lemon, they decided not to file charges on him. And I know that has him so very upset. Breaks my heart. But we'll get into that later. And our story behind the story today. This is a story that gathered national attention for days. It happened May 31 and June 1, 1921. This was a major race riot that destroyed a large section of Tulsa, Oklahoma, especially the black businesses and homes in Tulsa. What sparked it? It sparked because reports of a young black man who got in an elevator with a white woman who was the elevator operator, and she screamed, and from that point, things got out of control, ending in death and various forms of destruction. That will be our story behind the story, still to come today. Now back to the issue of where we stand right now with Iran and what's going to happen and what time frame. A question raised to four-star retired General Jack King.
The U.S. military has been sort of mapping out what this would look like. And here's what the New York Times writes. The exercises led to the conclusion that one bomb would not solve the problem. Any attack on Fordo would have to come in waves, with B-2s releasing one bomb after another down the same hole. And the operation would have to be executed by an American pilot and crew. Is there a second option, a ground option, that the president might have on his menu of choices?
Well, certainly there are a number of options, and the real issue is if the United States is going to do something here, it's likely going to be from the air because we have that capability. And let me say that if the United States was leading this campaign and Israel was supporting us, this would be a very complex and challenging set of targets to deal with Iran's complete nuclear enterprise that exceeds more than 12 bases out there where this enterprise is located, and some of them are buried under the ground. And they've spread out their enrichment, they've spread out their centrifuges to make this a difficult challenge. And the Ayatollah and his people have always had the thought, and this is why they never dismantled their nuclear program as a result of negotiations. They believed that they could absorb an air attack, and because so many of their capability is buried under the ground, they can survive that air attack in terms of capability, recover, and rebuild.
And you know why they believed that? Because they had Joe Biden and Obama in the White House, thinking they would never get to everything we have. Things are changing rapidly. Now, we have to rely on allies to help carry some of this out. I want to give you conflicting reports. These are conflicting reports. You can make what you want of them. One source that came from Reuters, United Arab Emirates, says it will not allow its airspace to be used in any way to launch attacks against Iran. That's one source. Still another source says that the Operation Glad Tidings of Victory which would follow a drone attack by Iran, which took place in June, would take place again. So we would be using various sources in the UAE and elsewhere. There's an Israeli report that says Jordan and UAE are now going to support our potential U.S. attack on Iran. And Iran is set to attack bases, U.S. bases, in Saudi, UAE, and Turkey. Still another source. An Al Jazeera report. The UAE, Jordan, and UK would back the U.S. in any attack on Iran. And I will give you one other report, also an Al Jazeera source. U.S. military moving Navy, Army, Air Force assets to the Middle East. Now that we know, we've seen documented for some time. This situation continues to escalate. And in the meantime, I was going to book him for an interview today, but we were already filled out. But I knew Maria Bartiromo will have him on. That's Jordan G. Chain, our Chinese expert we often go to. A lot of news sources rely on Gordon. And something happened over the weekend in China.
Welcome back. China's top military general accused of leaking Beijing's nuclear weapon secrets to the United States, allegedly accepting bribes for official acts. The general considered Xi Jinping's most trusted military ally. This reportedly is part of a larger aggressive dismantling of China's military leadership, as Xi Jinping supposedly is cracking down on corruption and disloyalty. Some experts questioning whether this is impacting China's military readiness. Joining me now is Gatestone Institute senior fellow Gordon Chang. Gordon, great to see you. You know, this is a story that you and I have touched on over the years, but I'm wondering what you think about this now, because if Xi Jinping has been weakened, which we know that he has since having that mini stroke years ago, why is he taking out, why is his lead military guy being taken out? Is that his decision or the Politburo's decision? What are your thoughts on this story?
Yeah, I think that General Zhang Yashao, who was the #1 uniformed officer, first vice chairman of the Communist Party Central Military Commission, was Xi Jinping's adversary in the military. And I think Zhang was actually taking out Xi Jinping's loyalists in the military, which he did last year. What we do know, and there's a lot we don't, but what we do know is that the Communist Party right now is in turmoil, and the military is not that ready because the senior leadership has been annihilated, as someone said. I don't actually think that Zhang Yashao passed nuclear weapons secrets to the U.S., but I think that clearly right now we are in a state of turmoil in China, and anything can happen.
Anything can happen, and as if we need another unstable regime, as with China. Back to the stateside issue, and then, of course, all the focus is on Minnesota and the ICE agents. Another shooting over the weekend, a man apparently showing up with a 9mm pistol. It's still unclear who did the first shooting or how it took place, justified or not. Still under investigation. But I want you to listen to some of the remarks that Harry Enton of CNN has been tracking on latest numbers regarding public perception of ICE.
How much has changed in terms of ICE and in terms of ICE, you know, then versus now?
Yeah, I'm not really surprised that President Trump is sending Tom Homan in, because ICE, DHS, Kristi Noem have been a political disaster. Because just take a look here. I mean, ICE's net approval rating during Trump's term, you go back to term #1, look, it's pretty even at 0 points. You go to June 2025, right? That was when all that stuff was going on in Los Angeles. They dropped down. Look at this, minus 17 points, way in the basement. But then after Minneapolis, it's even lower, minus 27 points on the net approval rating of ICE. Of course, this all being done under Kristi Noem. So, no, what's going on in Minneapolis is not popular at all. What's been going on during this second term under ICE, under the Trump administration, under Kristi Noem, has very much not been popular, and it's only been getting more and more unpopular.
And the reason it's unpopular is because we are enforcing the law. period. And we're not getting support from Minneapolis police and others. In fact, the Minneapolis police chief, speaking about that shooting that took place the other day, his remarks, and I'm paraphrasing, but basically came down, it makes no difference who's responsible. Damn sure does make a difference, even if the officer was involved directly and responsible. But in the meantime, Minnesota handsy Governor Walz has said, I'm trying to do everything.
The Attorney General sent that in. I would thank the local folks and Commissioner Snell. Thank you to you and your team over there. In that letter, they talked about, you need to hand people over who are in your jails. They're taking credit for people that we've had in jail for a long time. We always hand them over, and the Commissioner very clearly.
No, you haven't.
They're lying.
You haven't.
Lying. This has nothing to do with fraud. As the Attorney General said, they're not sending us forensic accountants, and these are things that have been we're dealing with now and have been for quite some time. So look, it's not a serious attempt to get at this. The way to fix this is get these folks out of here. We've continued to work with them. They asked us for these numbers. We provided them. We continue to show, and they're not serious. And look, I think everybody understands what the last request was, totally unrelated to anything on the voter files. This is, again, as the Attorney General said, Donald Trump telling everybody that the election was rigged, who started all this nightmare for America, has nothing to do with it. And I would just give a pro tip to the Attorney General. There's 2 million documents in the Epstein files we're still waiting on. Go ahead and work on those.
Yeah, well, why don't we begin by looking at the forensics material of your fraud? Secretary of State, Secretary of Homeland Security, I should say, Kristi Noem.
So my question is, what's the plan, Donald Trump? What is the plan? What do we need to do to get these federal agents out of our state?
We want transparency for the American people, and that's one of the reasons why you've seen our Border Patrol and our ICE officers out there working with the community and consistently asking the governor, consistently asking the mayor, please work with us. All we ask is that before you turn violent criminals out on the streets, let us know so we can pick them up and we can send them back to their home countries. We've asked for that partnership. We get it everywhere else in the country, that we have Democrat and Republican leaders working with us. We wish that Minnesota could be the same.
But they don't. That's the whole point. They don't. Coming up, a member of the John Birch Society talking about how these crackpot leftists continue to invade churches and thinking they're right. And our story behind the story still to come. Lock and load, ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
You should know that when I endorse Wellington Environmental, it's because I believe and know they will do you right. Wellington takes pride in providing homeowners and businesses whatever they need. You need some dustless blasting? They will take care of that. You need some mold remediation? They can do that. They take pride in training their team to perform multiple services and having the equipment ready to get jobs finished. That's important to you. You make just one call, and you call a company that's been around for more than 35 years with more than 45 technicians in the field. Most of you know finding good workers, then having them show up on time could be difficult. Not for Wellington Environmental. They're there at the designated time, ready to go. Check them out to see what they could do for you. Dustless blasting or anything else you need. Wellington Environmental, 314-644-4930. 314-644-4930. Be well with Wellington. The best thing I ever did for my neck and back pain was go to Esquire Sports Medicine. Dr. Draghi and his staff can take care of those pains. If they can't, they'll refer you to a specialist. And when you're hurting, you don't want to wait. So often with Dr. Draghi and Esquire Sports Medicine, you're treated within 24 hours. For any joint or muscle pain, contact my doctor, Dr. Draghi, Esquire Sports Medicine on Big Bend, just north of 40. EsquireSportsMedicine.com. Another day must be another roofer in town. And John Beal and I were talking. He said, every time you turn around, there's a new roofing company. Many of them have no idea what they're doing, and the statistics show that many will be out of business within 2 to 5 years. Who are you going to call to help you then? you need to remember only one name, John Beal. John Beal Roofing. You have a problem, he can take care of it. And we'll be here for you. John Beal Roofing. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. Renewal by Anderson asking, are you still battling cold drafts? Windows icing up again? Utility costs surging? You're worried about paying more every month? The truth is, you may already be paying for new windows and money lost to energy escaping your home. And here's the thing, you don't want to do this project twice. Renewal by Anderson spends every day replacing bad technology, poor installation of windows and doors that simply don't stand the test of time. But you can afford the best. America's most trusted window replacement company, Anderson. Call 877-WINDOWS or visit rbastl.com. Learn about our December savings event right now. 877-WINDOWS, rbastl.com. Renewal by Anderson. Superior products, exceptional service.
This is News Talk STL.
Make a living off a bathtub gin. When the hippie showed up, weed was in. Well, they profit off of weakness and they always have. Now meth is a recipe for cold hard cash. Something's cooking and it just ain't right. Hell's Kitchen gonna burn tonight.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back. My guest is Gary Benoit. He's the editor-in-chief of the New American. That's a publication affiliated with the John Birch Society. Obviously, right-wing, conservative, American. Also the author of the book, Vanguard of the Americanist Cause, a close look at the John Birch Society. First of all, welcome aboard, Gary. Glad to have you with us.
Thank you, Larry. I'm really glad to be with you.
Well, we've been following all these events continuing to spiral out of control in Minneapolis. And Harry Enton of CNN put out a publication today on their network showing, look, it was not so bad with ICE and Trump in his first term, but now it's gone wacko and basically trying to put the blame on Trump and the ICE agents doing their job.
It's an upside-down world, isn't it, Larry?
Yeah, for sure.
But I do think that's part of the strategy on the part of the revolutionaries. And let's start with this. Just imagine trying to do your job as an ICE agent where people are interfering with your ability to carry out your law enforcement duties and blowing whistles and whatnot. And how on earth can you get anything done? So, let's start right there.
And let's add to that, the governor is doing nothing to support them. In fact, fighting against them. The police chief in many of the communities saying, we're not going to do anything to help them. And yet they claim, look, if we're holding someone ICE wants in our jail, we hold them until they pick them up. That's a flat-out lie.
I know it is. And I think it's all part of the strategy. And really, the revolutionaries, and it's not just the people in the streets, it's also the people at the top. And of course, you mentioned the police chief, you mentioned the governor. But the whole idea is to make the situation ungovernable. And then out of that, what would come would be a police state. And you create anarchy, you tear down the old order, and then on the smoldering ruins of that order, you build a new world order. And so the people at the top, I believe that's exactly what they're trying to accomplish.
Well, on top of that, they're useful idiots. Majority of those in the streets that have been protesting are white.
Well, I know. And, of course, they're not just white. There are other colors as well. But the whole idea is to have a block of people here who do not have the understanding that we do of the principles of freedom. Of course, I'm referring specifically to the Somalis, but there are others too. And, they're being used in order to bring about the violence that can then be used to justify bringing about a national police force.
And the other day when they stormed this church, among them was Don Lemon Fruitcake. Now, I call him that based not on his sexual preference. I could care less, but he's a nut, he's a fruitcake. And yet he was out there saying, I should be charged. I was part of it. And the judge did not issue charges against him.
I know. Again, it's an upside-down world, but I saw his reporting, if you want to call it reporting.
Yeah.
And he was egging the whole situation on. He was encouraging shutting down a religious service. And imagine that. Imagine the media promoting what happened at that church in a way where in order to exercise your freedom to assemble, you had to shut down people practicing their religion. It's absolutely ludicrous.
Well, let's get into that. The FACE Act, which has been put in place to stop such things from happening, and primarily aimed at helping prevent minority churches from being overrun. The status of the FACE Act.
Well, the FACE Act originally was intended to allow access to abortion clinics. And, of course, at the John Birch Society and the New American Magazine, we're very pro-life. We're against the killing of innocent people, but we're also for the freedom to assemble. So it is, I think, ironic that the FACE Act was used. I'm sure there are other laws that could have been used in order to bring people to justice who would violate the freedom of religion and shut down a church service. And actually, law enforcement should be handled at the local level. And then only if absolutely necessary at the state level and maybe the federal level if it's viewed as an insurrection. But this is a dangerous trend in terms of bringing about more power on the hands of the national government when these things should be handled by local law enforcement. But what do you do, Larry, when local law enforcement, when the police chief and the governor join the revolutionaries?
Yeah, in fact, the police chief in this most recent shooting that took place over the weekend, one quote I've seen from him, and I have not had time to go into detail, but I'm going to take it as I saw it. Basically, he says, it's not clear who was justified or not, and it really doesn't make any difference.
That's an incredible quote. I had not seen that one, but of course it makes every difference because I want to be able to practice my freedom of religion. And what happened, Larry, at that church reminded me of what happened back during the COVID protocols and the COVID policies, where churches were shut down and shuttered.
Oh, yeah. In fact, and if you were standing outside praying with a mask on outside an abortion clinic, you were arrested. And you, of course, were not allowed to go to church even if you wear a mask. Now, unless you're Governor Newsom, you could go to the French Laundry in the Napa Valley and with all your friends have a nice dinner.
It really is amazing, isn't it, that this COVID virus was so selective that it would attack people going to church, but not attack people going to abortion centers to kill their babies.
So where does the John Birch Society stand in all of this with today's world? And now, when I was growing up, the John Birch Society was considered a mainstream, possibly, of America, and yet many considered it maybe a bit too far to the right.
Well, many people thought that John Birch Society was ridiculous when it was founded back in 1958 because we were arguing at the time, and of course we're presenting evidence as well, that there was a conspiracy and that this conspiracy was working to bring about more government leading to total government and more internationalism leading to world government. And we were blowing the whistle on that, and while at the same time supporting our constitutional form of government, the republic that was created by the founding fathers. Our slogan is less government, more responsibility, and with God's help, a better world. But as we've seen over the years, I would say, Larry, people are not laughing at the John Birch Society today because people more and more realize that we've been right all along, that this supposedly silly notion of communism taking over, we see that happening today before our lives, and today people are not laughing about that.
No, I mean, a conspiracy that actually has a factual basis. And we're seeing it happen with our young people, even in grade school. Indoctrination.
Oh, I know. And many young people today, they think they're socialists or they think they're communists. And of course, they've been sold a bill of goods. They may think that socialism is a share the wealth program, from each according to his abilities, each according to his needs. But socialism actually is a control the wealth program. the propaganda on behalf of socialism is simply intended to beguile people into accepting tyranny. And we've seen this happen in history. Hitler, for example, the National Socialists, the Nazis, the German people unknowingly helped to bring Hitler into power by voting for the Nazis, thinking that they would be better off, but they got tyranny instead. So we've seen it happen over and over again.
Gary, you stepped over the line there, because a lot of people think that you guys, you and others like you and me, put Trump in power to do the same thing.
Well, I personally voted for Trump, but the John Birch Society does not take a position regarding who should be elected or who should not. Our standard always is the Constitution, and the way we evaluate candidates is how closely that candidate or that politician follows the Constitution. And we do publish voting records on members of Congress, for example, and the best member, according to our guide, which is based on the Constitution, is actually Thomas Massey of Kentucky. Who has become very much in the news lately and is being attacked by Trump as being the most liberal member of the Congress and the Republican Party, and actually just the opposite the case. He's probably the most conservative, but that's the standard. If you believe in less government and more responsibility, if you believe that a government large enough to protect our freedoms, but not so large to take those freedoms away, that's what the John Birch Society supports.
All right.
If you're for more and more government, leading to total government, well, then you're a socialist or a communist or a fascist. It doesn't make any difference what you call it. It's still totalitarianism.
You're going to be interested in a piece we're going to have later in our second hour, and that is Michelle Obama suggesting boycott white manufacturers, and the fact that they own Martha's Vineyard. That was not built by. Anyway, we'll get into that later.
That amazing? Isn't that racist?
Yeah, it could be. It could be. All right, I want to thank you again, Gary Benoit. Again, the book is The New American, that's a publication, and the book is the author of Vanguard of the American Cause. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. God bless.
You bet. God bless. Yeah, a little bit later, we are going to hear from Michelle Obama talking about, we really shouldn't be buying something if it's made by white people. Martha's Vineyard, who built that? We'll get into that as well. And our story behind the story, the race riot wars in Tulsa.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I've told you how Tom Shaw Realtors can help you buy, sell homes, farms, acreage. Listen to what Tom Shaw Realtors did in 2025. More than 100 properties sold, $52 million in sales. ShawRealtors.com. 2026, a great time to visit Lit Cigar Lounge. The Lit Cigar Facebook has numerous events from tastings to music. My main reason for going to Lit is always quality cigars, premium whiskeys. Odds are we'll see each other at Lit Cigar Lounge. A few doors down, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta. Get a pizza baked over coals. Excellent crust and flavor. Or choose one of the many great pasta dishes. You won't leave hungry. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta and Lit Cigar Lounge in the Chesterfield Valley. Renewal by Anderson asking, are you still battling cold drafts? Windows icing up again? Utility costs surging? You're worried about paying more every month? The truth is, you may already be paying for new windows and money lost to energy escaping your home. And here's the thing, you don't want to do this project twice. Renewal by Anderson spends every day replacing bad technology, poor installation of windows and doors that simply don't stand the test of time. But you can afford the best. America's most trusted window replacement company, Anderson. Call 877-WINDOWS or visit rbastl.com. Learn about our December savings event right now. 877-WINDOWS, rbastl.com. Renewal by Anderson. Superior products, exceptional service. ever been in a wreck or felt as if you've been in a wreck? My advice, contact Dr. Bill Draghi, Esquire Sports Medicine. Yes, they can treat wreck victims, falls, other hazards of life, sports injuries. I go at least twice a month. That keeps the joints in line. Part of your spine get out of line, you start compensating, you're going to have additional pain. Don't be that guy. Visit Esquire Sports Medicine, Big Bend, just north of 40. EsquireSportsMedicine.com.
This is News Talk STL.
I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. I focus on the pain, the only thing that's real. The needle tears the hole, the old familiar sting. Try to kill it all away.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Now, Larry Connors with the story behind the story.
We're going back in history to a terrifying event that took place in the center of America. Accepting the fact that the Civil War was the most horrific thing to hit our nation, to divide our nation. Well, there was something else that happened a few years later. In 1921, May 31st, a 2-day-long white supremacist terrorist massacre took place in the Greenwood District in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, a lot of the material I'm going to share with you has come from a variety of sources. You can find them in different locations. I used many of them in compiling this piece of information for you. So I can't give you any specific. There were some sound bites and pieces of video that might have stood the test of time and be worthy for presenting on the air, and yet some were just not as solid as I wanted them. So allow me, please, to share the story behind the story of the Tulsa Race Massacre. Again, it started May 31 and lasted through June 1, the year 2021. I'm sorry, 1921. There were mobs of whites that were suddenly deputized and appointed as deputies to arm the city against racial strife. There was a section of Tulsa, Oklahoma at the time that was a black community, but considered one of the most wealthy black communities in the nation. In fact, some called it the Black Wall Street. When this thing began, it escalated rapidly, and definitely race was part of it. Whatever were facts in the beginning got lost or ignored, and it ended up involving some that had been, to some extent, involved in the Civil War. In 1921, Oklahoma considered itself racially, socially, politically tense. The territory of northern Oklahoma, established for resettlement of Native Americans. Some of them owned slaves. The slaves were the first black inhabitants of the Indian Territory. brought there by their native owners. Other areas received settlers from the South. Their families had been shareholders before the Civil War. Oklahoma was admitted as a state on November 16, 1907. The newly created state legislature, largely Democrat majority, passed racial segregation laws, most commonly known as Jim Crow laws. That was the first order of business. They felt we need to get the black people under control. First law segregated all rail travel, voter registration, disenfranchised non-whites. They could also not serve on a jury. And by 1916, Tulsa itself had an ordinance mandating residential segregation. No black could move into an area occupied by whites. Now keep in mind, the Civil War had ended in 1865, but it was still a living memory for many. The Klan began a resurgence. Tulsa was a booming oil city at that point, and it did have a number of affluent, educated, professional African American residents. That district in Tulsa, organized in 1906 by Booker T. Washington. Later, the area established as part of a district of Tuskegee, Alabama, to some extent. And as I said, it became the Black Wall Street. Fast forward, 1930. Correction, May 30, 1921, a Memorial Day. A 19-year-old black shoe shiner employed at a Main Street shine parlor entered the only elevator in the new Drexel building in order to use the top floor colored restroom. His employer had arranged for him to do that. And there he encountered a 21-year-old white elevator operator who was up on duty. It was not clear how much they knew each other, but there was more than a passing acquaintance. He often was on the elevator with her. At one point, and this is where the story got way out of hand and escalated to violence. He either fell, according to some reports, stumbled against the woman, touched her bare leg. She screamed in horror, and others came racing. Now, even though the police questioned the operator, the young woman, there was no written account of her statement. She apparently told police he grabbed her arm and nothing more. She did not want to press charges. The police determined what happened was less than assault. So they just basically put it aside. But the young black man was fearful. Tuesday, May 31st, he was arrested. And therein began the fallout. On the morning after the incident, when he was arrested, a black patrolman had detained him, initially taken to the Tulsa City Jail, and the police commissioner said he got a phone call threatening the man's life. He ordered him transferred to a more secure jail. The Tulsa Tribune owned, published, and edited by a Richard Lloyd Jones, one of the two white-owned papers, published a story in Tulsa and broke it with this headline: "Nab Negro for attacking girl in elevator." That was the headline. The facts didn't really support much of any of that. But that's all it took. Then there was an editorial warning of a potential lynching titled, "To Lynch Negro Tonight." All of this sensational style of reporting, and it quickly took root across the nation. It was printed all the way into New York and other quarters. Folks began to gather from the immediate area and elsewhere. That included the black community as well. And one who was watching some of this said about 50 to 60 black men armed with rifles and shotguns arrived at the jail to support the sheriff and deputies to defend the man being held. But then the situation began to escalate, not only with the number, but even aircraft, planes being brought in. So yes, there is more to the story behind the story.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Do you know why I endorse Cafe Napoli, all the locations? Visit any of them, and you will quickly appreciate the quality of food, service, atmosphere. So maybe I'll see you at Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli Kirkwood, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C. Or maybe you'll find me at Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Now you know why I endorse Napoli, NapoliSTL.com.
This is Larry Connors, USA. Larry Connors, USA.
Now, the end of the story behind the story.
So at this point, you have many black residents worried about the lynching of a black man. You have many whites who want to lynch him. And others were just fearing, quote, a Negro uprising. So they were ready to fight anyone that did not seem to meet their qualifications. There are conflicting reports about the exact time and nature of the incident. Members of the National Guard were brought in. And then there were planes that were brought in to go after some of the black neighborhood, dropping nitroglycerin and other flaming items onto the homes and the businesses. By 11 o'clock that second night, members of the National Guard tried to subdue some of the rioters, and again, there was more fighting. Throughout the early morning hours of June 1, groups of armed white and black men squared off in gunfights, basically along the Frisco tracks. That was the dividing line between the white and black commercial districts. Small groups of whites carried out raids into the black community. And as the unrest moved to other parts of the city, many middle-class families who had black people in their homes as live-in cooks and servants, they had white rioters on their doorsteps demanding the employees be turned over to them. Couple notes here. Oklahoma was admitted as a state November 16, 1907. It did not call in the Oklahoma Constitution for strict segregation, fearing it would be vetoed anyway, but was basically carried out. And many servicemen returning to Tulsa following the end of the First World War, as they tried to enter the workforce, white supremacists forced them out. All this massacre began, and when it was over, something like 10,000 black people were left homeless. The estimate of damage at that time, maybe 2 million. In today's world, that would be north of 40 million. Many survivors left Tulsa. Eventually, material was put together to write the full story and give it context about the plane circling in midair and dropping lighted materials onto the plane to the grounds below. One other surviving feature that came out of this, they decided to start teaching it as part of the curriculum of Oklahoma history. They made that decision in 2000. And now you know the story behind the rest of the story of the Tulsa race riots. Next week, my interview with Barack Obama. And our second hour is still to come. Remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcasts of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. Ever been in a wreck or felt as if you've been in a wreck? My advice, contact Dr. Bill Draghi, Esquire Sports Medicine. Yes, they can treat wreck victims, falls, other hazards of life, sports injuries. I go at least twice a month. That keeps the joints in line. Part of your spine get out of line, you start compensating, you're going to have additional pain. Don't be that guy. Visit Esquire Sports Medicine, Big Bend, just north of 40, EsquireSportsMedicine.com. There's only one place you can get pizza cooked over coals, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Of course, Napoli Brothers has a great selection of pasta dishes. Between the pizza and pasta, trust me, you will not leave hungry. Then, a few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge, a wide variety of quality cigars, each offering a unique smoke. That cigar, some premium whiskey, all you need to do is enjoy. Lit Cigar Lounge and Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, Chesterfield Valley. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Renew Renewal by Anderson asking, are you still battling cold drafts? Windows icing up again? Utility costs surging? You're worried about paying more every month? The truth is, you may already be paying for new windows and money lost to energy escaping your home. And here's the thing, you don't want to do this project twice. Renewal by Anderson spends every day replacing bad technology, poor installation of windows and doors that simply don't stand the test of time. But you can afford the best. America's most trusted window replacement company, Anderson. Call 877-WINDOWS or visit rbastl.com. Learn about our December savings event right now. 877-WINDOWS, rbastl.com. Renewal by Anderson. Superior products, exceptional service.
This is News Talk STL.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Let me ask you, Mr. Smith, at the time you secured those non-disclosure orders, was Speaker McCarthy a flight risk?
The non-disclosure order was based on concerns about...
Was Speaker McCarthy a flight risk?
He was not.
He was not. Then why did your non-disclosure order refer to him as a flight risk? It says right here, the court finds reasonable grounds to believe that such disclosure will result in flight from prosecution.
Sir, when securing a non-disclosure order, the risks don't have to be associated.
You think that the Speaker of the House is a flight risk?
The question?
No, this is not your time. This is my time. You think the Speaker of the House is a flight risk? You think he's going to hop on a plane and leave the country?
No, what I was trying to explain is with respect to a non-disclosure order, the risks aren't necessarily associated with the subscriber to the phone. They're the risks to the investigation.
I think that you were using, this was clearly in reference to Speaker McCarthy, and you were using clearly false information to secure a non-disclosure order to hide from Speaker McCarthy and from the American people the fact that you were spying on his toll records.
That is exactly correct. That is Texas Congressman Brandon Gill, I should say, questioning Jack Smith yesterday during the House Judiciary Committee hearing on how far the left was going to nail, destroy, burn, crucify Donald Trump and anyone associated with him. I cannot let this go without repeating it. If Trump had not won re-election, you would hear none of this. The only place it'd be talked about is cocktail parties where all the leftists are gathered. Hey, remember what we did? Remember that? Yeah. Made him look like he might be a fugitive from justice. And Jack Smith said, no, that was not really our intent, but it was part of your order. Jack Smith, using false, perjured information, went after every member they could that might have any ties to Donald Trump. Speaker of the House McCarthy, his telephone records were subpoenaed. They were held quietly. In fact, Jack Smith and his special counsel sent word to the general counsel, do not let AT&T know that we have the records of one of their clients. I've got scheduled for this hour tomorrow, because tomorrow we'll be broadcasting from noon to 2 o'clock. Jamie is taking some well-deserved time off, going to see one of his grandkids. And I tell you, that's more than enough reason to go. But we will be airing Larry Connors USA tomorrow at this hour. And tomorrow at noon, in the second hour, you're going to hear from a woman who has figured very prominently in the investigation into Donald Trump and the Dominion voting machine scandal. Sidney Powell, who got hammered for everything possible they could go after. She's going to be willing to speak to us tomorrow about what she went through, where the case stands now, and what is going to be done. Because it's not enough to point out how you've been victimized. We want accountability. Now, you may call it retribution, but I want accountability, and if accountability brings retribution, so be it. Thanks for joining us. Hour number 2, Larry Connors USA, January 26, 2026. And if you missed our last hour, 2 very good, engaging conversations. One with a representative of the John Birch Society and where they stand today in reference to where many think they stand. And the other with the Tulsa race riots that killed hundreds, maimed thousands, mainly centering upon the black community of Tulsa, Oklahoma. If you miss that story, believe me, it is worth going back and pulling up as a podcast. Every program we do is put up as a podcast. It's available at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, Larry Connors USA Facebook. And when you pull it up and listen or watch later, I have one request. Push share. Send it on to others. Because I told you with Larry Connors USA, we're not just up here bluffing and puffing and pontificating. We're bringing you news, analysis, opinion, and education. You will leave every hour with more information than you have right now. And in fact, before we wrap up even this first segment, you're going to hear why Michelle Obama thinks you should not be buying goods if they're made by people who are white. Really? I want to put that in contrast to this magnificent manse they had on Martha's Vineyard. I think there have been some transactions since that time, but they bought it, and they did not buy it from some poor black family, not on Martha's Vineyard. And I guarantee you, the clothing she buys is not all made by black seamstress, nor her perfume, nor their car, but they want you to understand the whites are holding you down. This applies to black people as well. They want you to buy into the racial hatred that they continue to push. Now, if you think I'm going too far that way, again, go back and listen to the last hour as to what took place in Tulsa, Oklahoma, over a 2-day period. And it started with a young black man getting on an elevator with a white woman. And what happened has never been clear. But she never claimed she was raped. She didn't want to file any charges. We don't know if they had some kind of friendly relationship or any relationship whatsoever. But it led to death and destruction in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So what we have with this effort by the Texas Congresswoman a moment ago trying to point out just how far the left was willing to go to create Trump the boogeyman. And they were lifting phone records from anyone and everyone. That included the newly elected Speaker of the House. It included Jim Jordan. It included many congressional members, especially if they had an R behind their name. And for what reason? Not very clear. But when you heard Congressman Gill asking Jack Smith, you put in here that you were afraid he was a risk flight. You really thought the Speaker of the House was a flight risk? Well, that's just standard language. We're just going to put it in there. They put it in there because they wanted it to appear this guy is dangerous. I want to take you back to another part of this entire story about trying to destroy Donald Trump in those beginning days. In the first term he was running, much less during the first term. Congressman Steve Scalise said they were upset because Trump had promised, if I'm elected, here's what I'm going to do. And he did it.
These agents have also arrested thousands of violent criminals in Minneapolis. That's one of the reasons that crime is down. And we're seeing that across the country. ICE, and look, again, anytime something bad happens, we all lament that. I wish it didn't happen. But the rhetoric does need to be toned down. But we also need to remember, why is ICE doing this in cities? They're enforcing federal law, Margaret. The law says you can't be here illegally, and if you're committing violent crimes, the president made it clear, in fact, he was elected. President Trump was elected to get rid of criminals in our communities. 416,000 criminals have been arrested by ICE just in the last year. That has helped make our communities safer.
And do you remember any of the leftists crying out that it's wrong to arrest them when Obama was actually carrying out some of those deportations? Nope, they never did. And why are they doing it now? Because it's Trump. We all know that. There's no doubt at all as to why they're doing it. And also keep in mind the constant whistleblowers sounding the alarm in the state of Minnesota for the governor to hear and pay attention to. We have a lot of fraud going on, and it's happening on your watch.
Whistleblowers told a congressional committee Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison there ignored warnings for years as millions of dollars and millions were stolen on their watch. Congress is investigating a long list of massive fraud schemes in the state. It's hard to keep up. Prosecutors say it's led to at least $9 billion in fraud, Dana, and counting. Congress also asking why the Attorney General there would meet with a group of Somali fraudsters, which were under FBI investigation in 2021. The group can be heard in an audio clip given to us by Bach's lawyer, offering to donate to his campaign if he can help them get their funding flowing again. Ellison denies any wrongdoing here. So we reached out to Governor Walz today. He didn't get back to us. House Republicans say it's just getting started. They want to subpoena Walz and Ellison because they say they're responsible for ripping off American taxpayers.
And you know what else is not mentioned in there? The police chief of Minnesota, in dealing with that most recent shooting that happened over the weekend, is being quoted, and I want to get the quote right in front of me because I don't want to misquote him. He was being asked about, what about this shooting of this guy over the weekend by ICE officers? His attitude was, at that time, it makes no difference. Well, of course it makes a difference. It makes a difference if it was justified shooting or not shooting. But I think they already know that it was justified, so they just want to walk away from it. Speaking of walking away, Michelle Obama is on record as basically saying, We need to quit buying everything made by the white people. We need to do more to support the minority groups.
If I hear of someone whose fashion that I like and I know that they're a person of color, I try to make it a point. But the clothes have to be available. You know, I think we can all do some work to think about that balance in our wardrobes. You know, what does our closet look like and who's in it? Who are we supporting in it? Right. You know, and I think if you have the money to buy Chanel, then you have the money to buy everybody. Right. And so let us be mindful, I think would be my advice. Yeah.
That is the most stupid remark I've ever heard that woman say. And I would love to have a chance to go through her closet and how many of them are foreign labels or how many are by very rich white designers. And then how many are made by a black seamstress in South Carolina? How about the plates on the table? The furniture, the china. And then don't forget Martha's Vineyard. That was frequently associated as their vacation spot. Blue Heron Farm had been owned by a British architect, Lord Norman Foster, and his wife until 2025. So from 2009 to 2011, it was being rented out for the Obama presidency. Well, there were a lot of other places they could have gone, but no, they went to the whitest of the white. 2011, 2025, Norman and Elena Foster purchased the property for $22 million. It was sold again in July of last year. Oh, you missed that? I'm sorry. It went for $37 million. You could have had it. So the Obamas did not own Blue Heron Farm, but they later purchased their own 29-acre estate on Martha's Vineyard in 2019 for $11 million, sold to them by the co-owner of the Boston Celtics. That doesn't sound like somebody who rose from poverty, does it? And they paid that kind of money. And now they want you to believe. You know, if you look through your closet and you find you have a lot of things that are made by people that could have been made by black people or colored or whatever term you want, maybe you need to reorganize your closet. Throw all that stuff out. I will not even get into the amount of wine that they serve and the other things they have. They're not living poor mouth. They're not. But they expect you to look into your closet and say, oh my God, this was made by Chanel. Surely I can get something that smells just as nice. They don't, but they expect you to. Coming up, a closer look at how ICE is being viewed by the nation because of what is happening. Lock and load, ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
Previously, I've told you about dustless blasting, a special service offered by Wellington Environmental. It could work for you in your place. Recently, a crew removed a driveway sealer that had failed. The owner wanted to go back to the original concrete so it could be properly sealed. Dustless blasting worked. That homeowner is happy. Now, sometimes surfaces need pressure washing instead of blasting. In fact, there was an exterior stone fireplace cleansed by pressure washing, and when it dried, all the dark stain was gone. That stone had its original appearance. Wellington is versatile with blasting. dustless blasting, or whatever you need. They will evaluate and make a decision. How do you get them to your door? Very easy. Call 314-644-4930. 644-4930. Wellington Environmental, making your world great. In fact, be safe, be well with Wellington Environmental. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check Vincent'sJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Vincent'sJewelers.com. Ever been in a wreck or felt as if you've been in a wreck? My advice, contact Dr. Bill Draghi, Esquire Sports Medicine. Yes, they can treat wreck victims, falls, other hazards of life, sports injuries. I go at least twice a month. That keeps the joints in line. Part of your spine get out of line, you start compensating, you're going to have additional pain. Don't be that guy. Visit Esquire Sports Medicine, Big Bend, just north of 40. EsquireSportsMedicine.com.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
How much has changed in terms of ICE and in terms of ICE, then versus now?
Yeah, I'm not really surprised that President Trump is sending Tom Homan in because ICE, DHS, Kristi Noem have been a political disaster because just take a look here. I mean, ICE's net approval rating during Trump's term. You go back to term number one. Look, it's pretty even at 0 points. You go to June 2025, right? That was when all that stuff was going on in Los Angeles. They dropped down. Look at this, minus 17 points, way in the basement. But then after Minneapolis, it's even lower, minus 27 points on the net approval rating of ICE. Of course, this all being done under Kristi Noem. So, no, what's going on in Minneapolis is not popular at all. What's been going on during this second term under ICE, under the Trump administration, under Kristi Noem, has very much not been popular, and it's only been getting more and more unpopular.
And who do you think is behind it not being so popular? And who's trying to stir it up and make it more unpopular? That's Harry Anton of CNN, and his numbers. I'm not questioning the numbers. I do want to draw attention to the fact as to why the numbers exist as you were hearing them being reported. There have been nothing but assaults upon ICE and the fact that they're out of control. They're cowboys. They're roughshotting. And there may be cases where they're doing that. I've told you I do not, even though I'm very big on law and order, I do not simply take someone's story and make it the fact. I want more details. That's why the other day, when the story first broke about the shooting of the Renee Good, everything indicated the officer was justified from what I saw, but I didn't have all the information. And I was not going to say it was clearly justified. Now, once I saw later video, different angles, and knowing that 6 months earlier he had been dragged by a car, that put a whole new spin on it. Now, just because he'd been dragged by a car in a previous incident does not mean he had a right to shoot and kill her. But if he felt in that moment, with that other incident, that fresh in his mind, that if he didn't do something, he was going to be hit by the car, even though the wheels maybe were turned from him, he didn't take the chance. He had a split-second decision. And I dare any one of you out there who think you know what you would have done. You don't. You do not know until it's your life or your family's life in danger. Now, we had this most recent shooting of this Alex Pretty, and there's several questions regarding this. In fact, a federal judge has granted a temporary restraining order blocking federal agencies from destroying or altering any evidence related to the shooting of the 37-year-old. The U.S. District Judge issued that order late Saturday evening. That bars all the federal defendants, Department of Homeland Security, federal immigration agents from destroying, altering any evidence related to the shooting. Does that mean there's something wrong? No. It does mean we're going to preserve it until it can be closely and by forensic measures detailed and analyzed. One Minneapolis pediatrician who said he watched this said the guy was shot by an agent on Saturday, and this pediatrician criticized the federal officers on the scene for not checking the man's pulse or beginning to perform CPR. And that's part of a ruling he filed in a lawsuit. He said checking for a pulse, administering CPR is standard practice. Instead of doing either of these things, the agents appeared to be counting his bullet wounds. Again, this is a 29-year-old licensed pediatrician, and he issued this in a sworn declaration Saturday. He said he witnessed it from the shooting of his apartment. He said he saw the agents shove a man who appeared to be unarmed to the ground and point their guns at him before shots were fired. And he said, and I'm quoting, "Initially, I was stunned from what I could see from my apartment," and there's a key, "there was absolutely no need for any violence, let alone lethal force." The Department of Homeland Security had stated they were trying to disarm the man who had approached him, and the agent fired defensive shots when the man violently turned from them. There are reports that he had a 9mm pistol. But this shooting, following the shooting of Good, is creating not just more flames, but fire and smoke. And Democrat representatives, here they come again. They're strongly condemning the fatal shooting, saying it's a very debate as to how bad this incident does it qualify as murder or execution. Do you know the story for fact? I don't. So I really doubt you do. And even the witness, what he saw, he admits, from what I could see. Now, I'm not looking to exonerate the agents if they were wrong, but I want proof. I don't want secondhand, third-hand eyewitness information, which is often, if not always, full of holes. In the meantime, Governor Walz is saying, look, you guys are coming here with all these ICE agents. We really are trying to get to the bottom of the fraud that you've been complaining about. We're not getting enough help with that. And you're out in the streets scaring our public.
the Attorney General send that in. I would thank the local folks and Commissioner Snell. Thank you to you and your team over there. In that letter, they talked about, you need to hand people over who are in your jails. They're taking credit for people that we've had in jail for a long time. We always hand them over, and the Commissioner very clearly. So they're lying. They're lying.
Give us the
this
paper.
has nothing to do with fraud.
Give us receipts.
The Attorney General said they're not sending us forensic accountants, and these are things that have been we're dealing with now and have been for quite some time. So look, it's not a serious attempt to get at this. The way to fix this is get these folks out of here. We've continued to work with them. They asked us for these numbers. We provided them. We continue to show, and they're not serious. And look, I think everybody understands what the last request was, totally unrelated to anything on the voter files. This is, again, as the Attorney General said, Donald Trump telling everybody that the election was rigged, who started all this nightmare for America, has nothing to do with it. And I would just give a pro tip to the Attorney General. There's 2 million documents in the Epstein files we're still waiting on. Go ahead and work on those.
Oh, yeah. Throw something in the water for distraction. Director of Homeland Security Secretary Noem.
So my question is, what's the plan, Donald Trump? What is the plan? What do we need to do to get these federal agents out of our state?
We want transparency for the American people, and that's one of the reasons why you've seen our Border Patrol and our ICE officers out there working with the community and consistently asking the governor, consistently asking the mayor, please work with us. All we ask is that before you turn violent criminals out on the streets, let us know so we can pick them up and we can send them back to their home countries. We've asked for that partnership. We get it everywhere else in the country, that we have Democrat and Republican leaders working with us. We wish that Minnesota could be the same.
Yeah, but they don't do it. And if he says they're doing it, give them the receipt. Show them where you booked them in and you turn them over. You're not doing it. So all of this is built into this Harry Enton's latest view of how the U.S. as a nation views ICE agents and their job.
During Trump's first term, look where it was in late 2017, right around this point. 59%, that's pretty gosh darn good. But look at where it is now in Trump term number 2. By late last year, it was down to 42%. So this is the same story that we're seeing no matter which poll question we look at. The popularity of ICE, of DHS, has completely fallen under the second Trump term, the second Trump administration, where what we were seeing during Trump's term number 1 was, hey, ICE, DHS, pretty popular, certainly not unpopular, but all the actions in Minneapolis, in Los Angeles, in these major American cities have been very much rejected by the American people. It has been a political disaster for the second Trump administration.
As Berman was just reading what the president was just sending out, he's now sending in Tom Homan, his border czar, into Minnesota, which leads to questions of what about the leadership of the Secretary of Homeland Security, who has inserted herself very publicly to be kind of front and center in all of these operations.
Yeah, as I said at the top, I just think there's a real reason for it, and that's because Kristi Noem, simply put, Kate, has not been popular, and everything she's done for the most part has not been popular. I mean, just look at her net approval rating. In July of 2025, it was minus 11 points. It's actually gotten more unpopular now at minus 16 points. I looked at...
He thinks he's going to be booted out. Will she? Stand by.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
Great news from my sponsor, Tom Shaw Realtors, proving if you want to buy, sell homes, farms, acreage, you want Tom Shaw. In 2025, selling more than 100 properties, $52 million in sales. ShawRealtors.com. When I have business clients or guests from out of town, I often take them to Cafe Napoli. I know they're going to enjoy any of the Napoli locations. Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, and Napoli 3 in St. Charles, next to Napoli C, Napoli Kirkwood, or Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the Chesterfield Valley. Excellent food and intellectual conversation, if they bring the intellectual conversation. And NapoliSTL.com. NapoliSTL.com. Renewal by Anderson asking, are you still battling cold drafts? Windows icing up again? Utility costs surging? You're worried about paying more every month? The truth is, you may already be paying for new windows and money lost to energy escaping your home. And here's the thing, you don't want to do this project twice. Renewal by Andersen spends every day replacing bad technology, poor installation of windows and doors that simply don't stand the test of time. But you can afford the best. America's most trusted window replacement company, Andersen. Call 877-WINDOWS or visit rbastl.com. Learn about our December savings event right now. 877-WINDOWS, rbastl.com. Renewal by Andersen. Superior products, exceptional service. 2026, a great time to visit Lit Cigar Lounge. The Lit Cigar Facebook has numerous events from tastings to music. My main reason for going to Lit is always quality cigars, premium whiskeys. Odds are we'll see each other at Lit Cigar Lounge. A few doors down, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta. Get a pizza baked over coals. Excellent crust and flavor. Or choose one of the many great pasta dishes. You won't leave hungry. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta and Lit Cigar Lounge in the Chesterfield Valley.
This is News Talk STL.
Roxanne, you don't have to put on the red light. Roxanne, you don't have to put on the red light. Roxanne.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
What have you heard from the Iranians?
They'd like to talk, but they should have done that before. I had 60 days, and they had 60 days, and on the 61st day, I said, we don't have a deal. They have to make a deal, and it's painful for both parties, but I'd say Iran is not winning this war. And they should talk, and they should talk immediately before it's too late.
That with the G7 before the president left late last night up in Canada there, and this is the truth. Social they sent out, everyone should immediately evacuate it. Easier said than done in the city of Tehran. The city itself has upwards of 9.5 to 10 million people. The surrounding metropolitan area of Tehran, upwards of 17 million. The country itself is massive. It's about the size of Alaska. It's twice the size of Texas. You could take 75 Israels and put it inside, fit it inside the geography of Iran. That's what you're dealing with here. The borders are extensive and long with Iraq. It's about 1,000 miles in length. Several up here with Armenia and Azerbaijan. Turkmenistan, you see as well. Afghanistan. Pakistan's got a border that extends about 500 miles. This is, thus far, what these neighboring countries have done. Pakistan announced its borders closed yesterday. Azerbaijan has done it as well. The airspace is closed over Tehran. Many of those taillights you see in the video that we've been showing for the last 2 days, it's been reported that many folks who live in Tehran are heading north to the Caspian Sea. There's the taillights there on the highways. They are jammed at night. It is so easy to see based on the video when the night gets dark. And
they are trying to get out of Iran. The Iranian citizens have been paying a high price with these demonstrations. The minimum number I've seen killed, and this is a minimum number based on inconclusive information, 5,000. 5,000 Iranians, many of them young, went out in the street protesting the mullahs. They want freedom again. They want it the way it was in 1959 before they took over our embassy. They want to become more of the Western world. They do not want to be dressed in hijabs and only their eyes are visible for the women. They don't want to be tortured and flogged in the streets if they're suspected of any kind of infidelity. And those who are so concerned about transgenders in our community and gay rights, know this: every gay member in Iran fears for their life. They can be thrown from the tallest building. If they live, they're stoned to death. Why should they not want freedom? Why should we not give them what they want? Well, as you heard Trump in that interview, we've been trying. We've been trying to find a way to talk to them. We've been trying to find a way that we can have a chance to have dialogue, that we can bring a peace. They have not been interested. And right now we're going to have to basically take a hard stand. Now, what does that involve? That's going to be the issue. He is not going to give details, nor should he. But Iran knows what we're capable of. We've already hit their Fordo nuclear facility repeatedly. Now, that is one of many they have. And the latest result for many, a report for many, is if you're going to go after that facility again, you're going to have concentrated, repetitive strikes at the same location. It is that well fortified and bunkered. And you don't want anything in that hellhole over there to be in the charge of any terrorist activity. This stuff you watch on the movies or on TV, it's getting scary. People have an atomic device or a dirty bomb, and they're going to set it off. Thank goodness the hero comes in and saves it. But this is real world stuff. I like to think that our intel, Israeli intel and others, the Five Eyes nations, that they're all concentrating on this and not letting it slide by. But the fact is, it's real. And it's a threat, not just to one area, but to the world. And just to help you sleep a little bit better tonight, a little bit better, I want you to keep this in mind. We often have on our program Jordan G. Chain, an expert in China. And I wanted to book him today, but I had so many other things already scheduled, so I did not. But he did appear today on Maria Bartiromo. And the question I had for him, she did an excellent job of pursuing, and that is, what is happening in China?
Welcome back. China's top military general accused of leaking Beijing's nuclear weapon secrets to the United States, allegedly accepting bribes for official acts. The general considered Xi Jinping's most trusted military ally. This reportedly is part of a larger aggressive dismantling of China's military leadership, as Xi Jinping supposedly is cracking down on corruption and disloyalty. Some experts questioning whether this is impacting China's military readiness. Joining me now is Gatestone Institute senior fellow Gordon Chang. Gordon, great to see you. You know, this is a story that you and I have touched on over the years, but I'm wondering what you think about this now, because if Xi Jinping has been weakened, which we know that he has since having that mini stroke years ago, why is he taking out, why is his lead military guy being taken out? Is that his decision or the Politburo's decision? What are your thoughts on this story?
Yeah, I think that General Zhang Yashao, who was the #1 uniformed officer, first vice chairman of the Communist Party Central Military Commission, was Xi Jinping's adversary in the military. And I think Zhang was actually taking out Xi Jinping's loyalists in the military, which he did last year. What we do know, and there's a lot we don't, but what we do know is that the Communist Party right now is in turmoil, and the military is not that ready because the senior leadership has been annihilated, as someone said. I don't actually think that Zhang Yashao passed nuclear weapon secrets to the U.S., but I think that clearly right now we are in a state of turmoil in China, and anything can happen.
And that's a frightening story. There's the devil we know and the devil we don't. If China is becoming unstable at the very top, what does that mean for the rest of the world? China is making all of its normal forays it has been doing what it can to work with Russia, work with Iran, Venezuela, Sudan, hopefully getting control of that area so no oil tankers can go through that area without China permission. But if they're falling apart at the top, who's going to be on the top and the last man standing? And what does it mean to world security? Well, in the meantime, you've got Canadian Prime Minister Starmer that decided this guy, I don't know what kind of Canadian scotch they're drinking up there lately, but it's got to be really bad. He is off the wall any direction you go. In fact, Treasury Secretary Besson said, I don't know. I don't know where the guy is.
Prime Minister Carney went to China, came back, dropped some industry-specific tariffs on Chinese goods, and we have a highly integrated market with Canada, sometimes in autos, which he dropped the EV tariff, I believe, from 100% to 6%. The goods can cross the border during the manufacturing process 6 times, and we can't let Canada become an opening that the Chinese pour their cheap goods into the U.S. We have a USMCA agreement, but based on that, which is going to be renegotiated this summer, and I'm not sure what Prime Minister Carney is doing here, other than trying to virtue signal to his globalist friends at Davos. I don't think he's doing the best job for the Canadian people.
No, I don't either. And I stand corrected. I did not use his name correctly. It is Carney. My mistake. Shame on me. But the fact exists. What is he doing? Who is he trying to play to? All of his buddies at the Davos convention? They will cut him off at the slightest opportunity. Here's what he has done already. He said, we are not going to push a free trade deal with China. He's saying that now because Trump made it very clear, if you do, we're going to hit you with tariffs. We're going to let you bring vehicles in from Russia into your country and then across our border as if they're a Canadian product. Not going to happen. The New York Times says U.S. automakers' foreign troubles now extend to China or to Canada because they realize he may still try it. According to The Guardian, they have a piece written I want to share with you. And it begins, Advantage China. Advantage China. Trump's tantrums are pushing U.S. allies closer to Beijing. It's written by their senior China correspondent. I'm not claiming to have more knowledge, but the very wording is that we are pushing Canada closer to China. The Canadians want nothing to do with China. I don't care what Carney rather wants. China is also saying, according to a BBC report, the Canadian deal does not target the U.S. after the Trump tariff threat. So China is already saying, look, we're going to do this. It's not going to hurt you in China, or rather in Canada. Everything will be just hunky-dory. You want more details? Well, the Chinese officials said in a recent trade agreement with Canada is not meant to undercut other countries. And that happened is because Trump immediately said, if you do this, we're going to hit you with a 100% tariff on all Canadian products. Well, immediately the Chinese Foreign Ministry said, no, we're not trying to target any third party. It's just a strategic partnership between Canada and China. And again, Canadian Prime Minister Carney said, Canada is not pursuing a free trade deal with China and has never considered it. You lie. You lie. You lie. We all know you lie. Your own people know you're lying, and certainly this White House knows you're lying. Now, you might pull that off on sleepy Joe Biden and all the rest of them. But we recognize when you're beginning to play on a different playing field and playing behind curtains. Now, you want a real assumption of what's going to happen? This is probably the best and the most qualified source as to what is going to happen if we continue to go down this road. If we're going to do anything with China, and China is going to try to cozy up to Canada, and Canada is going to do the same. You know who's speaking out against that and making it very clear that it's not going to be a good deal at all? Kevin O'Leary, Shark Tank investor of his own, Kevin O'Leary. In his words, China will eat Canada alive. Now, I tend to agree with his remarks than all the other nonsense. China will eat Canada alive. They want you to depend upon them, and then they will drop the hammer again and again and again. So let the Canadian Prime Minister preen and walk around like a peacock, like, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. Never mind the fox getting ready to pounce, and it will. As always, we thank you for listening, reminding you that tomorrow we will be airing live during the noon hour. Let your family and friends know. Jamie's taking some time off to be with his grandchildren. Perfect reason. And we'll welcome the opportunity to be with you tomorrow at noon. And remember, our story behind the story tomorrow, my interview with Obama. I'll never get another one. I know that. That'll be coming up tomorrow. And also remember our pledge. One nation under God.